Yes, This song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio Show with Tom and Ramon. And if this is your first time listening to us, welcome. And if it's not, welcome. No difference there. We have a great show lined up for you today, and we're always working on to getting more and more people, on the show for great interviews. And lately I've been been hearing a lot of people talk about this young generation and how they are, disconnected, and they're stuck in their iPhones and their gaming systems, and how they completely under control. But I guess, a lot of people say that you really do create your own reality, and that's not what I'm saying. Not saying that doesn't exist, that you don't have those teenage kids that you just need to stay away from them because they're so dangerous. But I am seeing more and more compared to my generation growing up, which was in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm seeing more and more kids stepping up and inventing things and speaking out against things and just being complete geniuses when, the system told them that they can't, they can't even finish school, that they have to be in special ed programs. I'm just seeing these lights coming out more and more. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is, if you see me or anybody else post something on this new generation and the things they're doing, make sure you paste it everywhere, because people need to change their mind and stop using the word this generation is worse than ours, because I think you're adding the energy to it instead of showing what they're doing. Anyway, enough of that rant. Tom, I have this thing I found that I was, I haven't looked into it, so I can't say what's truth here, but I'll read it to you guys, and the link is on the Facebook page, so you guys can find it there. And it says 10 signs that the global elite are losing control. Number 1, officials lie no longer effective. Sorry. Number 2, no confidence in politics. Damn straight. Number 3, no confidence in media. Yeah, that's bankers rejected.
Bankers rejected?
It states a little more, but I'm trying to rush through it so you guys can go. Well, I'll read a little bit about it. Hungary recently became the first country to follow Iceland, led by shedding international bankers, and is considering pursuing prosecution of the past ministers who enslaved the people with debt. Look for this trend to continue even if nations decide to default to break free.
Wow. Number did this, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Number 5, Vatican abruptly cleans up its act.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, mutiny among the soldiers. This I know is very true. Number 7, military. This one I don't understand. I have to read it into it. Militarized police states. One of the darkest signs that the elite are losing their grip on the power is the construction of the militarized police states. Okay, now I get it. Number 8, serious succession movements everywhere. Yeah, that's true. Like Texas and I think North Dakota and South Dakota wanted to do something like that, and Florida was talking about it. Number 9, GMO food being rejected everywhere.
Yay!
Yay! And number 10, cannabis liberation. And that's it for the news. I'll keep that short because we have an amazing guest. But before we introduce her, Tom, what's popping with you?
Oh, I just got back from ECETI again. We went to to see Neil Kramer here last weekend. And, man, there's God, so much happened. What I'm seeing and what I'm noticing in people right now, Ramon, is that there's just a tremendous amount of growth going on. There's people that are, that gifts are just that are exploding within them. Their, empathic abilities, their just general, all across the board, the psychic abilities are coming online. People are really doing that inner work. And this seems to be on the table for a lot of people. The looking inside and really sorting out where our thoughts and our opinions come from. Really getting control of the reactive mind. Why do we react this way? Why is that the first thing that I say when something happens? People really digging into those sorts of things and finding their true selves in this whole process, finding what their real likes and dislikes are, finding out, basically finding out who and what we are. And it's a beautiful sign, from in the world that I see, that one of those things that adds to my pile of things to be optimistic about. And again, on the other side of the coin, there's, as all this is going on, we have all this other crap going on in the world, that's escalating and it's seemingly spiraling out of control. But yeah, I just see both these things happening at the same time, Ramon, and it actually makes me more optimistic when I'm looking out there at that darkness, I guess. I don't know. Hard to describe.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of something Anelia Benz once said, which was that she grew up in a bad part of England and how she never saw any of those things. So, I'm starting to see that in my own life. And not saying that you should ignore this but make sure you focus your attention on what you want and not on what you don't want.
Right.
If a situation comes up, you have to deal with it. You're not going to ignore the elephant in the room, but focus on pushing him out the door. Don't focus on why he's in the room.
Yeah. There's a tremendous amount of tools out there that some amazing people have developed on this planet for going through these processes, learning how to look at your own thought process and learning how to distinguish between, true information that's coming from inside and stuff that's set up to lead you down a nasty little path, So anyway.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a lot of material out there, a lot of people doing some fantastic work, and just like our guest with us tonight, it's raising the level of consciousness on the planet, which is the key.
Yeah.
So
which is the key. So, who do we have, Tom?
We have Miriam Delcado back with us. As you guys know, she's the host for BlueStarProphecy.com, and the writing of Blue Star began after an abduction experience in 1988. She was asked to write a book for the beings she had encountered, explaining who they were at their request. The idea and acceptance of this task was not easy. It took her 15 years after they initially requested this of her to begin writing. Not only did complete acceptance take place, but the time was right at that time. Although she's had no formal education or degrees, her intelligence and intellect imply otherwise. Contact began with her at birth and is ongoing. She feels that she's been groomed for a role in this cosmic event as a messenger from the beings from afar. They provided her with education. They have become her teachers in this life and more. She feels that every day of life on this planet is a great gift to be cherished, honored, and respected. And also, she's been working on another website that, when it finally does come together, is going to be an absolutely amazing resource out there for everyone for information. It's called thegreatgathering.org. And we definitely want to welcome you back to the 100th Monkey, Miriam Delcado.
Woohoo! Thank you, Ramon. I'm so happy to be here. I love talking to you guys. It's like sitting at the sitting in the kitchen having a coffee with friends, and that's what I like about your program, and just talking about how and sharing how, these experiences that we're having and what's happening in the world, and really trying to get to the bottom of, what are we experiencing? Ultimately, that's where all of these conversations come from. What is it that we are experiencing? What is it that we think that we know? What is it that we think that we see coming? And we had some conversation prior to the start of the show, and I'm really looking forward to sort of, adding my voice to this, because listening to just the two of you, share the bit that you did in the start here, talking about the younger generations, Ramon, thank you so much, because even I get really heavy on, oh my gosh, look at this generation. But I also recognize that the children, the young people that are present, that are a part of our reality today, are really powerful when they do decide to come forward. They're really, really powerful. And I know that for the Great Gathering, we have a very special place that we've created for them on the website, just for them, because we know that those young people are out there, and we need to ask them what it is that they see in our world today and what we need to do. So, yeah.
I was gonna say, what I find hilarious about them is that, they'll ask you simple questions. Well, why do you do that? Okay, but isn't that bad for you? I mean, just simple questions that just will stump you, like, that make you feel like the child and then the adults. And the other thing that I've noticed with them is that, a lot of these behaviors that we, no respect and stuff like that. And it's like, who did you learn that from? Because they didn't come in, they weren't born disrespectful. They weren't born apathetic. Actually, if what I learned from preschool is how empathetic they are. Their empathy is just amazing. They're very empathic. Many of these children. It's just later, it gets beaten the hell out of them. So really, whose fault is it? And I'm talking about our society as a planet, not just, the people listening to the show.
Right. I agree with that. And I know that that's, we need to find the solutions to these issues, and we need to not only seek the solutions, but we need to implement them. And that implementation is often what we are most challenged by in this situation that we're all in. I am a, quote, alien abductee contactee, and I communicate with these beings on a telepathic level. And I also am very intuitive, and I feel earth changes. I feel different situations and things from the people that are in my life. And all of it focuses on what are the solutions to life, and what is it that we need to do to have a peaceful, sustainable, and happy lives, not only now, but into the future. And I think ultimately all of our conversations, whether we're talking about the GMO foods, we're talking about how do we accomplish this. GMO foods, I am completely against Monsanto. I am completely 100% against Monsanto. I call them Monsanto the destroyer. And anyone listening to the program that is not familiar with the name Monsanto, if you value life, if you value the planet, if you value your children or any future generation, they need to know about Monsanto. But it's not even the genetically modified seeds that I have a problem with. It's the way that they're doing business. It's the way that they're conducting themselves and creating havoc in our own systems and trying to change laws around the world to insist that people eat these genetically modified foods. And this is just not right. So these are the things that I look at, and this is also what these beings 25 years ago talked about. They talked about all of these situations that we're currently facing, and it's really very, very interesting because in the last, even in the last few months, I've had huge messages, what I call huge messages, very powerful messages that were given to me by these star beings. And recently, I'm starting to get these absolute confirmations of these powerful messages that came regarding who we're working with and how we're working and what we're doing. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, if I could.
Yes, please.
Okay, a little bit of background. You know, I've been working with different people around all over the planet, really, and I've gone through some different phases, you know, really put myself out there for about a year and a half, 2 years, really talked to a lot of people. I mean, everywhere, every corner of the globe, you know, talking to people. And really just drained myself because I found that a lot of these conversations that I was having were just not fruitful. There was no productivity that was taking place in those conversations other than chit-chatting with people. But it was very informative. And so I pulled myself back a little bit. Then I started working with very focused people in the community, whether it was the alternative news, the UFO community, just spiritual communities, trying to bond in and understand how we could support each other in our work that we were doing, not to do anything other than how can I support what your job and your role is in this cosmic play that we're all a part of. And then I found that about 2 years ago, things stepped up. That's when everything stepped up, was in beginning of 2010, probably, 2011. By 2011, we were fully engaged. Everyone was very much engaged by 2011 in the process that we were internalizing for all of these years prior to say, okay, I have to get to work now. And it was kind of a year of panic for people, 2010, 2011, just complete panic. I have to do something. Well, people are still figuring that out, and it's okay. But many people around the planet realized that they had specific projects that they needed to start. So that was great. But then in this past year, you know, I've been working with different groups of people and different individuals for the last couple of years. And all of a sudden the star beings came to me and said, stop. Stop. Any relationship that you do not have that is not respectful, that is not in a is in a very clearly unified respect. Even if we fight, we can still fight between each other. But is the respect still there afterwards, or will we just want to squash each other? There's a difference here also. It doesn't mean a perfect utopian relationship. But the star beings came to me at closer to the end of last year, beginning of this year in 2013, and said, if you are not in positive relationships for the work that is in complete heart-centered, clear pathways, stop, and we will send new people to you. So I actually went to many of the people that I work with in indigenous communities as an example, And I went and told them this message that I had received and said, this is the situation. And so, I feel like I've been blessed because another contactee just about a month ago ended up on my doorstep in the most profound way imaginable, which is too long to tell you all the detail, other than to say, gosh, did I realize that God, the Creator, had a plan for us to meet, that had begun months and months and months before. It began in April, and we ended up talking about 4 weeks ago. And when she came to me, she told me that she had been given a message around February, March, which is exactly the same time I received the message that said, we, the star beings, we need you to restart. Stop and restart everything, all the relationships, assessment, cut them off, let them go, and start new relationships, because the ones that you have are not working. They are no longer productive. People went into ego. They went into control mongering. They went into different things. They said, stop, we're going to restart. And since then, just in the last few months alone, all these new people are appearing. And I found another person from the UK, and he had the same situation. It's been astounding. So this gives me hope, because although it was for a kind of a negative reason that we weren't getting anywhere, it brings in a new path going, oh, okay, there is a plan. There is a greater plan. And a number of different people, as we discussed earlier, started to also say this. Guys?
Yeah, definitely. You know, on the, from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot of people doing the same basic thing where they're doing house cleaning with their in their lives, where those relationships that are no longer beneficial, that are no longer supporting of the path are being cut, and people are having to move forward and take things with the fresh step, So it's
absolutely, it has become a fresh step, and it's become, I'm just looking at things a little bit differently in the last few months, because every time I start to get pulled off course, it's like I was pulled off course by certain individuals or certain groups of people. And I keep getting this message back from the star beings that says, get yourself back to center. Come back here and focus on what we gave you to do. And for me, that's working with very specific, quote, indigenous people, and focusing on thegreatgathering.org, and focusing on Blue Star, and not so much giving support to these other people's projects who are really looking for a more individual pat on the back, or demanding their own specific agendas be fulfilled.
Right. Yeah, definitely. When there's, in the, I hate to go here, but in the UFO and spirituality genre, whatever you want to call it, the woo-woo world, there's the, I guess the best way to say it is those who are centered on ego, their own ego in what they're doing. They're being basically called out on a carpet. Things are happening to, expose them, quote unquote, and it's actually, it's kind of startling when you start seeing the names of some of these people that are, their true colors are being shown.
I'm so happy that you said that, because I know that there have been several individuals, through my experience in the last 4 years, who have just been behind the scenes. They have just been absolutely, the level of disrespect that they have showed towards Hopi, for example, has been so extreme that if anyone truly knew what people have done, and they knew the details of what they did, they would never, I'm saying absolutely never, listen to another word that individual said again.
Right.
And I know that there's been a lot of that. I mean, we're all human and we make mistakes. And oh gosh, I do. I'm not even close to being perfect in any way. But, it's about this level of just blatant disrespect that we can have in the world. And again, talking about this is where I know even for myself, taking a look at what the patterning is and how to change it and what I can do to change it. I'm constantly doing that. And that's really what the star beings are trying to ask us as a world community to do, is to change our patterning. And I'm very pleased to say that, again, we've been given a bit of a fresh start by saying, okay, restart everything. And those people that are not in integrity are being exposed one at a time. And that's a very good thing. And there are a number of people in our community, in the alternative community, all across the board, all of the alternative community, and elsewhere in the world, really. Some people are very, very good people at heart, but there's a darkness that sort of steps into people and takes them over and then uses them to manipulate and cause trouble.
Right.
And I have to say that all of us are susceptible to that. Not one of us is not susceptible to that. And I know even for myself, I think I've been used that way. And if someone comes to me and says, stop, Miriam, I generally will stop.
Right.
Because I recognize that something is going on. And that is what we are struggling with. There's a transparency that's coming forward in our world through religious leaders, spiritual leaders, governments, military. All of them are starting to have more and more transparency towards the people because of the alternative communities,
right,
and otherwise. But we wouldn't have that information if the individuals that are part of those communities didn't come forward. So we are absolutely moving forward in a positive way to have a better understanding of what system we've allowed for ourselves to be built up around us, both globally and individually. And that's the message of the star beings right now, is what is your system? How can we find positive solutions? What are those solutions, and the implementation of them? And, a lot of people think that when I begin to talk about, aliens and UFOs, that I'm going to start talking about, Sirius and the moon and all of these things. No, I'm going to bring you right back to Earth, and I'm going to say, what are we doing here on Earth? It's not about what's out there. It's about what's here and what we're focused on with our hearts and what we think about in our minds, and then what we manifest into the world. Like you said, Ramon, verbalizing it brings more. And I've been struggling with something in the last week myself, with an individual who is very destructive. And I've been talking about them, and I keep telling myself, Miriam, you have to start to verbalize the positive part of what you want also, because you're giving that other part energy. And the Hopi actually say that. You need to talk about what you want and not focus entirely on what you don't want, because otherwise you give energy to that.
Right, right. And it's not a sticking your head in the sand against those negative aspects. You have to be in full awareness of those things. But, I use what I call loving discernment or loving detachment, excuse me. I feel love, especially when I'm dealing with somebody who, from my perspective, sometimes I can sense that those other elements are working through them and are pulling their strings, and from that place of awareness and realization of what's really going on, it gives me such a tremendous foot up on how I deal with any interaction in that situation, so that I can do it from a place of best and highest good within myself, And it can basically am able to short circuit any influence that they could possibly have had over me, or those elements that are working through them. You're able to short circuit those things from being in awareness of the fact that it's happening.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the whole point to this. You know, there's so many beautiful things that we could be focusing on, like opening up our brain centers and getting more access to the other worlds through our meditations and our thoughts and our prayers. And instead we end up focusing on, the distractions that are around us. And even I end up doing that and have to pull myself back, focus myself, and then move forward. These star beings have said, and have been sending a very clear message. And they've been saying that time is running out for us to come and get to work in a way that's going to be productive for our future, and that we have to stop talking and we have to get into action. And what that action is centers on the balance between our relationship with the earth itself and between each other. And I think that the relationship that we're having with each other, especially in the spiritual and UFO community, alternatives community, there's some really great parts to that have absolutely made a massive difference on the planet. But when it comes to us getting our hands dirty and really getting to work to do physical work, I think that we're lacking. And that's what they're asking us to do now, is to stop talking and get to work. Get to work. Plant your gardens. Find out what's happening with your waterways. Learn what's happening with your genetically modified Monsanto freak food. Learn what the laws are that are being passed in countries around the world regarding your health and the food that you intake and your right to water. Every single thing on this planet has a right to eat, to drink water, and to have the natural world around us. They're making it in many countries around the world, they're making it very challenging for people just to go out and collect a raindrop. And we need to not only educate ourselves and educate others about this, because I'm not talking about some fantasy world. I'm talking about the reality. And in a 1-hour program, we can't talk about those really heavy issues. But what we can say is 2 hour, is to go ahead and really take a look at what it is that's happening around us and get involved. Signing a petition, we've become the society of signing petitions. Absolutely fantastic. We've become focused in our thoughts, what we want to see, writing it out. But how do we go out into the river that we have beside us, which I have a huge river just down the street from where I live? What do I need to do to protect that in my community? And that's really the message of the star beings. And that's why if we have people that we're working with that are on personal agendas of any kind, we have to stop and we have to reassess, and we need to start working with people that are in different positions. If I need to be a follower, then I will be a follower, and I will do exactly as I'm told by someone who has more experience than me. And that is called humility, and that is an aspect of our alternative community, whether they're the people on the radio or off the radio, that we could really benefit from understanding, is this thing called humility.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the frustrating things, getting a bit of echo there. One of the really frustrating things is there's technology out there that both me and Tom have heard of, people talk about, where, for example, there's certain technologies that you could dip into a river and it goes through some magnetic, I don't know how the process works exactly. It goes through some magnetic something, and it cleans the water out.
Yes.
And there's other technologies where it doesn't use all this pollutant and stuff. And that part for me frustrates me because I know it's out there, but, you know, I can't get my hands on it and go, for example, you know, get my hands on it and go put it in my mayor's face and say, listen, here, now you can clean the river. I don't want to hear no excuses, you know, but just to get our hands on those things, I find, for me, that's the most frustrating part, because I think right now that's, and I think you agree, that's really probably one of the most important, besides probably number one is getting centered and finding yourself, your true self. But then after that would be, you know, these cleaning technologies.
You know what? I completely agree with you. The technologies, you know, I said this, I wrote an article a while back on my website talking about how these star beings had spoken to me in 1988 about new technologies. And they said these new technologies would come forward to the world and they would help with everything from energy to healing. And when these new technologies came forward, it would be the manifestation, I'm using my own words here, not theirs, the manifestation of a sustainable future in a way that is more positive and easier on the environment and humanity, that's more in balance with our spiritual selves. So the new technologies coming forward is really one of the most important things as well. There's some key foundational aspects to life, and the new technologies is absolutely essential to start to really focus everyone. And what I've found is that in the last year and a half, those new technology people are starting to poke their heads up a little bit more strongly, and I'm really happy about that. The star beings came to me about a year ago and told me that the new technologies were going to be coming forward this year. And that's what I've noticed, is more and more and more the new technology people, the inventors, the builders, the creators are stepping out into society more strongly all the time. And you are right. It is a suppression of the right to life. When we cannot bring forward these new and alternative technologies to the ones that we currently have. And this is where a unified voice within our alternative community that is not based on private agenda, but rather support of a greater whole, can focus. Because we know as a community that in respect to, as an example, Monsanto, that the unified voice is what has stopped Monsanto from going into certain countries and doing their destructive work. And this is a very, very, very positive thing for our planet. And we need to do the same with alternative technologies, as well as all of the other, quote, truth movements that are out there. And I think that's what you and I, what all of us are a part of, is a truth movement.
Right. You know, like we mentioned, a lot of that stuff is really, you mentioned, they're starting to pop their heads up, and that's definitely true. There's, the obstacles that they're running into are, I guess, best way to put it is that the dirt is finally starting to get swept away from the eyeglass, and we're able to start to see through it. We're able to see the corruption of the obstacles, and the corruption of the obstacles is starting to get pointed out on the world stage. And one of the obstacles is the communication net, right? The way they're tracking us, the way that they're keeping their eyes on certain people, for sure. And this whole thing going on in the world right now with Snowden over in Russia. That's a tremendous step forward for us, because it's actually pointed out something to all the world that has basically all the people in the world. You can ask anybody about Snowden and what it's all about, and everybody seems to know.
Right.
So oh my God, to me, that was one of the hugest events that have happened, since 9/11.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like, Miriam and Tom are not crazy anymore since they've been talking about that. Because the thing is, at least in this community, in the alternative community, we've known about it. But you're right, Tom, to have somebody like Snowden come out, and then you can, to the layman person, you can point out and say, see, I told you, I'm not crazy.
Right. Right. No, I see that as an overall a sign, a trend, if you will, that's happening on the planet right now. People are just getting sick and tired, and they are saying, okay, I've had enough. It's got to be seen. People have to see this. And, yeah, good stuff.
Well, that's exactly what it is, isn't it? I mean, again, it's been very fascinating for me as the individual to kind of sit back and watch all of this, because just before things really start to pop, the star beings usually come and forewarn me. And they started to come and say, look, a lot of very powerful people are going to begin to be exposed, and a lot of very big issues are going to be exposed in the truth. That truth is going to come forward. And I wrote about it, and I told people, you're going to be shocked. I didn't say you're not going to know about it at all. I said you're still going to be shocked. And that's what's great. I told people 25 years ago that this was happening with me personally, with being monitored in different ways. And now when I say it, they actually believe me because of Snowden, because of the different alternative communities speaking truth as well. And I'm not the freak that I used to be. I mean, I have been a freak my whole life. I mean, and I don't like that word because I was called that a lot. And I'm not. I'm a human being. I am a human being. People today have made themselves into something else. They have made themselves into that by completely absorbing the system that has been around them, to not think, to not look, to not ask questions, to be obedient. And I mean that in a way of the spirit, not in the way of a destructive, I'm going to tear down, or harm or hurt or anything like that, but just in a spiritual way, not to ask questions about who we are and where we're from. And if we go within our spiritual selves is when we become human. And I use this term a lot when I'm speaking to people. I say to them, you are a human being. And when I meet people who want to have their fancy cars and their way of life, and, they're killing everything around them, and they're using pesticides on everything, and they want genetically modified foods, and they're driving their cars with, not that I don't drive a car, I drive a really old car, but they have the ability to make changes in their life no matter what you have or don't have financially. And when people don't do that and they're destructive towards each other, I don't believe that they are human. I believe that they are only an aspect of a human being, and that a true human being is spiritual, is seeking truth, is seeking to support the life that is around us. For example, when a traditional, quote, indigenous person prays or does a ceremony, they support the life around them. And I believe that as a white woman from Canada, I support the life around me by praying in my own way, in my own thoughts and in my own space. And that makes people human, of not walking in ego.
That's funny you say that, because that brings up an interview I saw actually on CBS, which was shocking. But Cardinal, I think his name was Cardinal Butte, or I'm mispronouncing his name, but anyway, he did a lot of things for countries that in wars and during the apartheid, and he talked about how the soldiers were burning a person alive. Sorry to get graphic. Were burning a person alive, and right next to it they were cooking a steak. And he was saying, in order for you to do that, you have to dehumanize yourself.
Right.
And that's the only way possible. And ever since I heard that, it's so easy for me to see that and say, well, the only way, consciously, why do I feel bad if I say something bad to somebody else? That's that human aspect. But in order for me not to care, I have to dehumanize myself. I guess that's when you hear a lot of soldiers say that when you kill or injure somebody, you actually kill a part of yourself.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I felt this way. We are still not talking about a utopian human world or a perfected being, single soul being. We're just talking about the basics: compassion, respect, honor, for the most part, to the best of our ability. But, for example, I keep coming back to this. I'm faced with an issue right now with an individual who's been so destructive, and I'm so tired of it. I have to say that I'm almost exhausted over this one individual and what they've done. And I just keep thinking that they're not human anymore, because if they were, then the 25 people before me and during this whole few years that told them, please stop, 25, 30, 50 people who have said, you know what, you need to stop what you're doing, you're being hurtful, they would have stopped if they were, quote, human. But they haven't, and they've continued. And this is what I say, it's dehumanizing. And this is what our society does. This is what our systems do. This is what our choices do. This is what our technologies do in many different ways. And this is why we need to rethink our education systems, our transportation systems, our heating, the way that we, the way that we run what we use for fuel, even how we communicate with one another through television and what we put on the television. It's about rethinking to support, quote, humanity. Because everything that's been created certainly isn't for nature. It's been for human beings. But we're dehumanizing and therefore becoming almost those hybrid beings of something else that I don't even recognize.
It's been postulated by quite a few different people out there that there are several different races of humans on this planet, and and this is something that I've actually chewed over myself. I haven't really talked about this on the air at all. But there's I kind of term them as, I guess, the soulless. This is hard to talk about. I come across people at times where I just don't feel any energy off of. I don't feel any life energy off of. Mm-hmm. And they just don't seem to be real. I mean, this probably, I don't know if this is making any sense at all or not. But it seems to me like there's it's a very large chunk of our population who are just basically drones. They're, but I get a sense, I also get a sense when I look at them that there's a potential, that all of them have a potential if the the right spark is given, or that it has to be something that's generated within. The right environment, the right situation, whatever, can ignite the spark. And then they have the potential to set themselves on the path of the individuated soul.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems like there's so many of them here that are drones that are dancing to the tune of some conductor.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. For example, back in '88, after I came back from, being with these, quote, extraterrestrials, as some people call them, it was really extraordinary because my, quote, my psychic ability was just absolutely through the roof heightened. And I remember walking down the street and literally seeing what I call the shell people.
Mm.
They were shells.
Right.
Because it was like looking at an egg with no yolk. I mean, there was nothing in there. There was just nothing.
Mm.
And I kept wondering what the purpose of these beings were, because it didn't quite make sense. And there's all sorts of speculation, and I'm sure that the ETs have information on all of this, but what I know is that, for example, when we incarnate as beings, as individual beings, every single being comes from a specific place within the cosmos, within the other dimensions and worlds and life other than here on Earth. And so there are different kinds of incarnated beings from
right.
different places.
Right.
And although people like to think that we all come from the same place, ultimately we do. However, it's like saying, you have someone who grew up learning how to kill ever since they were born, and then put them into a monastery, a Buddhist monastery. They're not even going to be able to comprehend that. They're just going to go back to what they've been taught their entire lives. It's the same thing for the soul. The soul, each individual soul, part of it has the singular experience, and then part of it has the oneness experience, and we come incarnated with both. And it's a little bit complicated, but with the beings, these extraterrestrials, these star beings, they made it very clear to me that there was a number of different places from which we were incarnating here on Earth, and some of them are not positive. And this is why when, I had an experience recently where I spoke to a woman, and it was really hard on me because she got so upset because she said, "Oh my God, your spiritual teachers are aliens. I want nothing to do with this." And she just lost it because what she knew of this extraterrestrial alien experience was some of the darkest, scariest, I think almost evil imaginable. And that's why we have to be very careful in understanding that even with humanity that's incarnated, we still have all of these different types of beings that are coming. Right. And I think that what I know is that there are people placed all over the earth that are coming from one place. And that is the place that is in balance with the respectful aspect of connectedness and interconnectedness. And I would say that the three of us, as an example, and many people around the planet and in the alternative communities, are from that place. That's what we came here to do, to sort of take things and see if we could turn them back into a respectful path for us to be able to incarnate and have the human experience.
Right.
So, this is part of the darkness that comes. I don't know, when I was a kid, I'd never watched that show, and I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest, but people being possessed, and there was a lot of those kind of movies that were out when I was really young.
Right.
About possession. And it's been interesting because in the alternative community, we realize that that is a reality. And it's just not manifesting the way that it was made into movies.
Right.
But it is definitely present where people are being taken over by this other dark energy. And then they become less human. And this one person, for example, that I'm having great challenge with, just in my view, is taken over. And I don't know. I mean, it's just heartbreaking to watch.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That just, that, what you just said there brought back to mind an experience I had when I was first waking up. There was somebody who I will say was much farther along the path than I was at that time, was trying to explain to me how the darkness can take people out of our lives. And he had lost somebody to something that was entity based that had really torn him up. And I just said, as you were telling me that, this whole scene played through my mind, and I don't know. I just figured I'd tell that. I don't know. I had nothing out of that, but it just came back.
Isn't that interesting, though? Because you know what? That's the way that I've seen a few things. There was one individual, I don't want to point fingers or names, but there was one individual in the, quote, alternative community who came out with a bang. Just a huge bang. And she was, and I could hear the love, the heart, the center in her message. But I also saw how she was being absolutely used and manipulated by the people around her. So I've seen this happen over and over again, where people were just taken over and used in order to literally serve a darker agenda. And what ended up happening to that individual, this woman, is that she was pretty much destroyed, what I saw in the public.
Right.
Because she was ripped to shreds over what she had done. And what I see, and I still see even today, is not the destructive part of what she did. I see that she was completely taken over from an agenda that should have been extremely powerful and beautiful.
Right.
And it's sad.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up this first hour, and then we'll move on into the member section. Want to give you a chance to how people can get in contact with you and find you, and any workshops you might be doing.
You can reach me through my bluestarprophecy.com website, and also thegreatgathering.org. I'm the executive director. And unfortunately, I have no time for any kind of seminars or conferences that I attend, at least not at this point in the work that's being done. Yes, or consciously.
You have to listen to the other interviews to get that joke.
Yes, you do. Absolutely, you do. But I really enjoy people contacting me, and whenever I get a chance, I sit down and answer some emails from people. So please do take some time and say hello and join the conversation, as I say. Join the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Are you planning to bilocate anywhere?
Yes, I am actually. To be honest, I actually am.
All right, we're gonna save that for the second hour. I guess we'll start with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank everybody for listening to this first hour. And if you're not a member yet, I urge you to hit that join button and become one of the 100th monkeys. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
And told us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Free Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King.
Aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing recede. Due to the media propaganda killing my creed. Know what don't kill me make me stronger, feeling straight when I bleed. Fighting for interest and forwards attached to feet. They try to say you anything in this world, nothing for free. Land, air, fire, and water, they keep up in the ante while the anti-proletariat told the powers to be. But we keep fighting, surviving and thriving, recycling and rhyming. We constantly inclining, we see through the lying and prying. They tactically keep trying to keep you from asking the why.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King.
Aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
We find solutions, different possibilities, creating organizations like Aspire to Be, inspiring young minds to see, building life skills, nurturing creativity, fulfilling the youth's basic needs, listening actively, teaching the tools to succeed, positive role models, we plant the seed, the roots drink the water which feed the trees, someone help me, giving back is my responsibility.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the belief